Hello everyone, Halt here with the second class on my SourceMod tutorial for creating your own mods. Class 2, which was named Functions in the typed out version. So let's go ahead and start. As always, we will be using Notepad++. So let's go ahead and get started. So how a function works, you do a lot of things with each individual function, but it's basically how you command your program to do something. So example, don't use this, don't try and use this, but an example is a function could be create admin. Now create admin has what's called parameters, so we'll go ahead and start with this. Go to the SourceMod API, which is just a library that lists all functions and forwards, and we'll go to create admin. And so here you go, you have everything that you need in order to use the create admin function. So create admin, the name, the string for the admin. Now we're gonna go ahead and skip that function, but just for example, it's not as simple as this. You can't type in create admin player name. It's not that simple. We're gonna go ahead and use a much simpler function, print to chat all. So print to chat all simply prints a message in the chat box. So we'll go ahead and copy and paste this and then go step by step onto what it means. So set our syntax to C++. So on plugin start, it's going to hook event, player death. So we'll get into hooked events later, but a brief description is every time a player dies, the game fires this event to the server, player_death. So what hooking it does is every time it's called or every time it's fired, it brings us to player has died and executes what's in there. So down here we have player has died. So every time player death is fired, this executes and whatever in it happens. So as you can see, print to chat all, a player has died. So every time someone dies, player death is fired in the game, which calls for player has died in our mod and executes print to chat a player has died. That simply says a player has died in the chat box every time a player dies. So we'll start with this. Print to chat all is a function that has two parameters, however you wish to say it. Now the parameters are listed down here, and it tells you what they do. So formatting rules. So if you want, for example, if we don't want to print to chat all, if we want to print to chat to a client, you can use, first off, the first parameter is the client you want to print it to, the individual client. The way it's formatted, so the actual text, we just have a string here between two quotes, and then a variable. We will not be getting into the variables, but for example, we could add what the name of the player is, so who died, with this parameter right here. But for now, we're going to keep it simple, and we're only going to use one of them, and that is the actual text that's going to be displayed, which is this first one right here. Now you could do a different thing. You could do it a different way by making a string here. So string new what it says, and then define it. Okay, so down here we're going to change okay, so now it will just display the variable and the string that is held in this variable, which is player has died. Alright, a few corrections were made. First off, we forgot to dim this as a string, and it is a string because it's holding text characters. And so simply just add string before what it says, and then add the size of the string. But we're gonna actually put the text in the string up here. You can do that by doing this. Okay, so now we have our string up here that is going to be displayed down here when a player dies. So that's just another way to do it, or you can just have the text the way we did it before. So now let's go ahead and save it. Saved it as test.sp. Then we're going to go to our programming scripting folder, wherever you saved it, or wherever you put your scripting folder from the last video in. And you're going to drag and drop onto compile. It's not going to compile. We have two errors. The first error being on line 2, array size. Okay, so invalid array size. So I'm pretty sure that is my error. So let's go ahead and try and compile it and see if that got rid of the error. Okay, so that line is now fine. There's no error there. I simply forgot to add the equal sign here. So this is what a string will look like. If you want to include more than one bit of information in here, you can simply do that by adding a comma and then another string. So another player has died, and that'll work too. As long as you have a list, just make sure that there's a comma after every single one except the last one. There will be no comma after the last information in the string. So we will go ahead and save that. So now our second error is coming from line 13, where it says arrays do not match. So line 13 is to print to chat. So let's go back here, go to print to chat, print to chat all, and then we will double check. Okay, so it's simple. The one bit of information that we were missing is telling the program what bit of information we've given them, if that makes sense. It's the second parameter here. So variable number format parameters. So since we provided a string, we're going to go ahead, hit comma, and add percent. That is not percent. Percent s. Okay, let me recollect myself. I made a very stupid mistake. These are mixed up. So you're gonna make your quotes and type percent s for string. Then you're gonna add what it says. So let's go ahead and compile that. See if it works. Okay, it does. So it compiled clean after we debugged a few errors. The first one was I put that error in there on purpose to show you the steps of debugging, but the second one was just my own mistake because I wasn't thinking. So what we had before was wrong, and what we have now is correct on this line 13. So percent, okay, so as you saw before, we had our string in here, which just said a player has died. Now we're trying to do that through a variable. So you put percent s in there for string, for text, and then after that you need to tell the program where the string is coming from, or what the string is. And so we put in what it says, because that is the string up here, and that is where we have dimmed our string, a player has died. So we could make another one and maybe just tell it to say this instead. So we can simply change it to and now it'll say blah when a player dies. Now, there are more benefits to this if you're using it in a different case. For example, trying to buff a bunch of weapons. It comes in handy because you can put the weapon names in here and list them all in this one string, and then when you want to actually edit it, you only use this string, as opposed to typing out every single weapon name up here stored in this string. It will edit it automatically. We went a little bit more in depth than the typed up class, and there's a few things that I forgot to mention. So on plugin start happens whenever the plugin starts. As soon as it loads, whatever is in here is executed. It happens. So hooking the event, player death, you want it to start from as soon as the plugin loads. As for the rest of this, it appears we covered it. Alrighty, so if you have any more questions, I know that I winged this and might not have made sense to some of you. Feel free to, as always, comment, ask questions on the video itself or on the forum post. I will answer them as soon as I see them. We went a little bit more in depth in the video than we did on the actual post. So next lesson we'll be talking about hooks more, events, and syntax, which is just the highlighting you see here, the color. It makes it easier to read. And well, this is syntax highlighting. Sorry, syntax is actually think of it as grammar. It's the way the programming language grammar is formatted. So like, for example, in the English language, when you're listing things, you put commas after them, right? Like a list of things like, I'm going to the store to buy bananas, fruit, apples, and blah, blah, you put commas there. It's literally the same thing. It just tells you how to write this all out. So print to chat all, and then you need all your information inside of these brackets, and then inside there you put a string inside of quotes and then comma and then your variable, and that is what syntax is. It's very simple. So as always, any questions, let me know, and I will get back to you guys as soon as I can.